I do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. This is David Tulis. I'm Dr. Loco-centric, Dr. Nooga-centric, and there is a fight. There is a fight between Dave Crockett, probably our leading statesman in his 70s now, and me. He beats me, though, because he's an inch taller than me. I'm 6'2" or 6'3", and once in an interview, he corrected me that he is 6'5", even though he has some signs of age on top of his pate, covered by a 10-gallon cowboy hat. He is nonetheless taller than your host here. And not only am I a very tall talk show host, I'm also the blogger with the biggest pen. That is a boast, a kind of a vanity that my partner here at the radio station, Confederate Mike, it's sort of pushed upon me. And so to be compliant, as all Americans are very compliant people, I'm just sort of saying, okay, I guess I can work with that and call myself the blogger with the biggest pen. But I am a writer. In fact, I do write a great deal. And by the miracles of technology and talk to text, I can be traveling in my car, maybe traveling in my kick-ass Hummer, which is our radio station vehicle, and be creating a text, right? Because I think that talk is one thing. It's fine to talk to people. To you, my listener, I really appreciate that you let me do that with you. But things really change more by writing. And when you write and then someone reads you, that's how you influence people for the long term, especially if you write books. No, I haven't read a book. I haven't, but I'm thinking of one. And I've already talked about it with a colleague. And the book is called TN Traffic Ticket. I already thought about the title. And I know the subject matter pretty well. And we'll be gathering my gear together to get that out, maybe. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that we argue here for the principles of Nooga-centrism, and nothing that I offer you here is copyrighted, okay, or trademark. You may use it as you will. You may claim custody and ownership of it if you want to. That would be fine, and I encourage you to do that. And the nostrums, the maxims of local economy and free market are: near is better than far, small is better than big, and simple is better than complex. And then down in the footnotes, 5-point, yeah, you got it, 5-point type Helvetica. Well, why Helvetica? Well, Helvetica is the neutral font. It is Swiss. Helvetia is, of course, the Swiss Confederation, the Helvetic Confederation. The Helvetic Confederation is neutral, right? They don't make war. They don't invade people. They don't drop bombs on people who speak funny languages. They make peace treaties, right? They provide very sturdy oaken tables for warring parties to sit over and discuss their grievances and make treaties in Geneva, and that's called neutrality. So I use my footnotes. In footnotes, I use the neutral font Helvetica so that you can read it easily without eye strain. No serifs to clog the works there. And I say that personal is better than corporate, and physical is better than abstract. And these ideas are enunciated by the leading website for the man who matters in Chattanooga. That would be Nooganomics.com. Shifting gears to yournews.com. Yournews.com, brought to you by yournews.com. This show, the David Tulis Show, loving your neighbor and buying local. And you say, well, what about this serif business? I don't quite get that. Well, you know what a serif is? It is a little blade that you find on the ends of some letters. So, for example, we have a capital A. At the bottom of the two legs, you have these little feet, right? These little shoes that help the letter stand on its own 2 feet and not get dirt in its toenails. So they have little shoes on the feet. Well, really, you think those are shoes, but they're really little blades. And government people, senates, congresses, houses of representatives, they tend to write with serifs. So when they write, their sentences that are printed out on the page, page after page after page after page, with the indices, another page after page after page, and then you've got the codification of the statute in the regulations, which are the policies, and in the national government, they are codified in the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, that come out in the thousands of pages. serifs we'll find everywhere. And so serifs are a picture of government words that have knives. They are words of compulsion, words of obligation, words of commitment, words that tie your hands and force you into a new way of living, a new way of pleasant subjugation and obedience as you follow the rule and hire staff, hire attorneys, and hire compliance businesses that make sure that you are following the rules. And the rules are written, of course, in New York font or Roman font, all of which have serifs. So I tend to favor the neutral font, okay? And that's why in my footnotes at Nooganomics.com, when I say personal is better than corporate, it is because, and physical is better than abstract, it is because we don't want to force anybody, right? We want to have a voluntary Christian society. Christian society, if you read the Bible, is highly, highly voluntary. There are a few rules. You know, there's the death penalty, no doubt. But it is in liberty creating a free society. And free societies are not possible apart from external, non-human made, non-state ministry created law. That would be God's law in sum. Many of our founders believed in God's law. Some were deists, and many were rationalists. Many of them were, even though they were converted in their later lives, like Alexander Hamilton, an adulterer. And he was a man who favored the central bank. Of course, the first central bank was his project. Loved the idea of credit and centralized power. We have what Hamilton dreamed of, though he repented of his sins. And as the time drew nigh to have the duel with Aaron Burr, he was very, very moved in his soul with repentance and sorrow for his sins. And he worked very hard at family worship and catechisms with his children. And he knew that he was going to die, and he knew that he would foul the shot. And Aaron Burr would have the day. He knew it was going to happen on that island out there in Boston, and it did. So we have from Alexander Hamilton his great success, the genius of the Constitution, which is, of course, a document that creates the central power that we have today, the unitary power, a document which is a compromise, and a compromise which all the Christian people of that era bought. You won't learn about this anywhere except in the revisionist historical literature, led by one of my favorite writers, Dr. Gary North, still alive, still productive. You can find his periodical work at Lou Rockwell. He writes at Lou Rockwell. Lou picks up his stuff that is at GaryNorth.com. If you are a subscriber of GaryNorth.com, you get all the inside stuff. But the hoi polloi, the commoners like me who can't afford Gary North, we just read it at Lou Rockwell. Now, I'm running out of time. Why does management not give me more time? I need some time. Hey, Mike, I want some time. Well, okay, he's not here. But anyway, this is David Tulis, and I've got to get to the prisoners. Okay, prisoners. All right, we need to find help for Robert Z. Whipple. He is a man in prison, and I have his latest letter to me, March 12th. And he's a marvelous man. He's appeared in the Chattanooga Time-Free Press in the recent story, page 1 of the Time-Free Press, I think by Emmett Gienab, who's a very fine young journalist. We read about Robert Z. Whipple, and he's going to be getting out soon. And he's telling me about the parole board case, Whipple versus Tennessee Board of Parole. And he says, as for my parole board case, it was filed in June of last year, and since filing, I have requested several emergency preliminary orders, but the judge has done nothing. The writ of mandamus is issued when a higher court commands a lower court to perform mandatory duties. In this case, I've asked that the lower court screen the case under the Prison Litigation Reform Act, rule on pending motions. And so he's discussing his legal problems. When I really like the way he discusses the law. He's very smart on the law, and I'm hoping that we can use Robert C. Whipple, use his knowledge in a direction in which he wants to be useful to people like you, taxpayers here in Tennessee. He wants to work on prison reform, which God requires. God requires not just prison reform in Tennessee. God requires abolition. Abolition of the prison system is a godly commandment. Very few people see it that way. They just don't read it in the scriptures. They don't see the scriptures claim on what justice is, as requiring a turning of the back and a kicking down of, a turning over of the prison industrial complex, which is a for-profit business anymore under Core Civic, formerly known as Corrections Corporation of America. He says I mentioned to him a new item of litigation, and he says, see, I agree that traffic laws are just another way of keep minority and indigent citizens down, and actually serve as a way to tax them. I would urge caution, however, as our government at all levels loves to use driving privileges, which aren't actually a privilege, as a weapon against the populace. I have met many here in prison who are serving lengthy sentences under the habitual motor offender laws. Basically, they're being punished for nothing more than driving. One man in particular, who is a Christian brother, was declared habitual for getting caught driving on a suspended license several times because he could not afford to pay the fines to get it restored. Now, this man has a family that he must work to support, and he lives in a part of the state where there is no public transportation. So he broke the law in order to get the work to feed and clothe his family. I see no evil in that. The only thing he is guilty of is being poor. He received a 5-year sentence when he got caught driving after being declared habitual. He didn't receive any more traffic charges. In fact, the only law he broke was driving. He didn't hurt anyone or drive drunk. He simply drove to work. Admittedly, he first lost his license due to a DUI, Robert Z. Whipple says, but that was more than 10 years before, and he hasn't drove drunk since. I judge Tennessee to be as much of a police state as Hitler's Germany ever was. I realize that is a provocative statement, but the only difference between Dachau and BCCX, that's Bledsoe County Correctional Complex, just over the hill on Horsehead Lane, or Horsehead Road in Bledsoe County, just next to us. He says, we don't have gas chambers. It is in every other way similar to one of Hitler's work camps. Remember, only the Allies refer to them as concentration camps, right? They're not concentration camps, they're work camps. Sorry for the rant, he says. So that's part of Robert Z. Whipple's letter. Now, he's making a reference here to an important matter that is before the city government, brought there by me, okay? David Tulis, having given what I call administrative notice to city government. I'm holding it up here for you on Facebook. We are live on Facebook every morning. Just go to the Nooga Radio Facebook page and make sure to like me and like our work here at Nooga Radio. And of course, you're seeing it backwards. If you're seeing it on YouTube, where we are also at the Nooga Radio, you can see that the top of the headline is administrative notice, table of contents. On page 1, there is a table of contents, and then there is an abstract which runs about 8 lines. And then inside you have the page, the first page. It is a legal review that I have done at no charge. I am not charging my time as legal reviewer at all to anybody. It is simply available. And it's administrative notice on authority to regulate transportation, travel on Tennessee public roadways. And so what it does for the next 19 pages is explain the law. Explain the law. And city government, Wade Hinton and all, they're going to have to pay attention to this notice because it is a notice. And it's not an argument. You think, well, look, here David Tulis is this loudmouth talk show host at Nooga Radio and this inflammatory writer at yournews.com, our sponsor. And he's blabbing loudly to city with mumbo jumbo law cases. Well, that's what a simple person would say. But in fact, it is from months of serious analysis and reading of court cases. And here's the situation that Chattanooga faces legally. If Chattanooga, the corporation, which has authority to enforce Title 55, which is the driver's license law, if it continues to enforce this statute against private parties, especially now that it has received notice about the distinction between private parties and transportation parties, it is facing a lawsuit, or even worse, any of the 500 police officers who are sworn to uphold the Constitution, who involve themselves in a traffic stop under the city's authority, and that traffic stop injures a private person who is not subject to that statute, that officer personally is facing a lawsuit and damages, because the officer has the authority to enforce the transportation statute only upon parties involved in transportation and not against private users. Now, who are the private users? Well, the private users are people such as the man mentioned in Robert Z. Whipple's letter. They are simply going to work, right? They're not involved in the commercial activity of using the public road for hire. They're not carrying people or goods for pay and for profit. They're not common carriers, and they're not particular carriers. In other words, a carrier who only ships for one company, like a Walmart carrier, is involved in transportation, but he has only one customer, and that's Walmart. Okay, so there are specific carriers who are limited. They're not for hire, right? They're not for hire. They're there involved in transportation, but serving one master. Others serve many masters, and those are called common carriers. So this man in the letter is not involved in either one. He's simply using the public road that belongs to the people. He is using that road for his private purposes. And you think this is an obscure issue. Well, it's not. And you know why it's not? And that's because Chattanooga and Hamilton County, which also has received notice now on the 1st of March, enforced this law against private users and fills the jail with these petty defendants, whom are of the most deplorable sort economically, mostly. In other words, the poor. Who gets caught up in this machine? The poor. The minority, poor minority. People who are immigrants in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. They're the ones who get caught up in this system. They can't afford bail. They are simply eaten alive by the court system, starting with the officer who has probable cause to stop that person in his car. Now, that person is stopped in his car under probable cause because the transportation statute reduces the threshold requirements for probable cause to things that are not crimes. If you are stopped in traffic in a transportation stop, you're being stopped criminally under a rebuttable presupposition. And that presupposition is that you're involved in transportation and that having a tag light out on your tag is a crime. Not using your indicator to make a left turn is a crime, right? Going a little too fast is a crime. Going for a quick hop into a parking lot the wrong way on a one-way street, that is a crime. Now, these are not real crimes, but they're crimes under the statute. So the threshold for probable cause is, you might say, on the floor, right? There's not really a crime that's occurred, but under that law, if you're subject to it, you are a criminal suspect immediately, and you're arrested. A traffic stop is an arrest. Every traffic stop is an arrest, according to two cases that I keep referring to. State versus Garcia is one, and what's the other one? State versus Tolsworth or something like that. I can't remember. Don't have it in front of me. But they make it clear that for Fourth Amendment purposes, a traffic stop is an arrest. It is a seizure and a stop. Okay, and so the threshold for these stops against these poor people, against these minority people, right? Against these common people, against these people who are income deprived and don't have their papers in order. They are the ones who are stopped, and they're the ones who are consumed alive in the judicial industrial complex in Hamilton County. Hamilton County is feeding upon the poor. And I'm reading this morning, if God gives me grace, every morning to read all through Jeremiah, which I'm committing to do because I'm a sinner. And I feel that I have, in a way, a kind of prophetic ministry in talking about these issues. And I want to know how to frame them properly. The city and the county are consuming the poor, the African American, and the person who has his papers out of order, but it really doesn't have to have them in order at all. They don't have to be in order. If you have a revoked license and you're using the road privately, it doesn't matter that it's revoked. It matters that it's revoked only if you are involved in transportation. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm going with this? It sounds like a lot, but in the end, we have people subject to arrest under the police powers under a misapplied statute, a statute applied over broadly when it needs to be applied in a narrow way against whom? Right. Against truckers, against cab drivers, against dump truck operators, against FedEx people, against men and women who are driving covenant transport 18-wheelers. Those are the people who are subject to Title 55. And that's what administrative notice says. It says that And it's not me saying it. It's just what the law says. The law says administrative notice. It's called TAN. Get the TAN. Get a TAN. TAN, Transportation Administrative Notice. It says those in charge of transportation subject to the law. And this is David Tulis. Find out more about this amazing issue and the wonderful prospects that are going to arise. Wonderful, simply wonderful prospects that will arise to the benefit of the county, the mayors of these counties, cities and counties, and the common and poor people. This is David Tulis working to bring these things about for God's glory.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3.